All right, it's NFL Network's Charles Davis joining us right now. And of course, he was on the call for the Senior Bowl at the Senior Bowl with plenty of insights. So we're hoping to pick your brain a little bit because the Seahawks have some big decisions to make. I'll start, Charles, with the quarterbacks. Who stood out to you?
No one in particular, and I don't mean that as a slam. Okay, it sounds horrible, right? No one in particular, but they struggled, in different ways as they went. Did they get better as they went on? I thought so, and obviously the headliners were Michael Penix and Bo Nix right there in the Great Northwest, and both of them got better. And the key to everything is always remember the tape is the tape is the tape. 1 week at an All-Star game should not change the fortunes of someone. In fact, a Hall of Fame executive told me, All-Star week, you don't ding anyone, but it's okay to elevate people. If they show you something you really like, that's great. But don't take 1 week and just throw it all out. I thought Michael Penix's arm in person, even more impressive than what you watch, when you're watching a game and you're watching tape. You're like, my goodness, there's times his feet don't get adjusted, but that ball still comes off of his hand live and gets to his target really well. I thought Bo Nix, when things were a little unstructured, I would have thought he would have really kind of like, hey, that would be his game. But in this case, it really wasn't. But as the week went on, he settled in, started getting sharper, making throws. And anyone who throws for 78% in a season, you better be taking a whole lot of looks at because he kept getting better and better and better. And when you watch the tape, you see him manipulate safeties, move people off their spots, get the ball to the right people. They were the headline quarterbacks. Spencer Rattler got a lot of nice press and a lot of praise. Remember, he was the game MVP. He played like 2 series and got the game MVP, but he's made a really good play on the touchdown. His big thing is, I think you both probably remember him when he was 17 and did that quarterback feature and what have you, and that did not go well. Okay, if you watched that feature, you said to yourself, I don't know if I like this young man. All right? I mean, this is not a kid that you would get behind. He understands that, and he's matured. And he understands he's combating that, and he's meeting it head on. But I thought he got better as the week went on as well. So those were the main ones. And don't forget the wild card is Joe Milton out of Tennessee because he is gorgeous. Okay, if you want to carve out a kid that looks like a quarterback, he's it. He's like Anthony Richardson last year, but he's not as consistent throwing the ball. He's not as dynamic a runner. But body-wise, every quarterback coach you guys run into will say, please draft him. I don't care when. I want to work with him because if you can unlock that, you've got something because it takes nothing for him to throw the ball 70 yards, just a flick of the wrist.
Well, Charles, let me start off by saying you're a tough crowd, and I really appreciate that, man. I love it. But obviously, I'm going to focus on the Northwest and Michael Penix. He decided not to play in the game. What do you think was the reasoning behind that? Was it simply just staying injury-free, or was there's something else behind that?
Michael, I think it was probably just being, in this day and age, hey, I practiced every practice, and he did. He took every snap. He didn't sit out things. He didn't miss anything. He was in every meeting. He did all the right things. Like, to me, he was the best quarterback for the entire week when you put all together the body of work and the whole deal. He just probably, made that decision at the end like we do with bowl games that aren't for the college football playoff. I've done it. Do I really want to take the extra gamble in a game like this? And he just sat out. Again, in this day and age, if you're a scout and you have not learned, you cannot take that personally and start writing up guys, he doesn't love football. He didn't play. He didn't do this. That's not the way it is these days. Okay? Get over that. Let that go. He did everything else that you could possibly do. Was it disappointing to not see him? Of course. But here's the counter of it. Bo Nix did all the right things, went out and played. He's going to get praised for that. He played 2 series.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're going to gain a lot for it. And I'm not saying Bo was gaming the system. Remember, he's from Alabama. He was a headliner. He felt a responsibility that the people came out to see him play. I think he's a wonderful young man. But he played a couple series. Okay, so let's not get it that he's like, yep, I'm going to play 4 quarters because here I am. These guys are having to be smart about what they're doing. I don't think there's anything sinister with what happened with Michael. I think he only gained points throughout the week.
Charles, sticking with the quarterback conversation, I was listening to the Jets defensive coordinator, Coach Jeff, and he mentioned how he watched the quarterbacks kind of transition to receiving the play in the headset, right, in their helmet. What is that like? What did you observe when it comes to these guys getting used to receiving the plays in that way?
Michael and Stacy, it is a quantum leap. It is you wake up in the morning and you're speaking English, and by the later in the afternoon they want you to speak Farsi. Okay, that's what it is for these guys, because the way the game has evolved, you guys watch it, you guys observe it, you guys are right immersed in it. How many times do you see a guy even go in the huddle now as a starting quarterback in college football? How many times does that quarterback have to even call a play? Everything is on the line of scrimmage, look to the sideline, get the call, watch the defense, look to the sideline, get the check, come back, run the play. My phrase for this for the last 5 years is we're not developing field generals anymore. We're developing executors. You execute what you are given. How many people have to go in the huddle and say, guys, we got 85 yards to go. Look at my eyes. Believe in me. It's rare. You're just out on the field. So you have to get to your team in other ways to execute that, to put that kind of leadership into your squad. And the best quarterbacks do that. But when you go from never calling plays to all of a sudden you go to a system where you're getting it not only in your headset, but think about spitting out the play. And if it's a West Coast terminology play, that's like all of a sudden reciting the War and Peace for your class. It's a whole different change for these kids. They're spending time in their hotel rooms talking to the mirror. They're going places where no one can see them because it's embarrassing to them because, all of a sudden you're talking to yourself and trying to get it right. And not only do you have to do it, you have to spit it out with confidence so your team feels like, yeah, this is a good play to run. It takes some work. It takes some time. They will get it eventually. This was the first step in doing it. And not only that, when was the last time many of them took snaps under center?
Right.
A lot of them just don't do that. So you're asking a lot out of them. All these teams are looking for is, are they, one, willing to adapt? Are they, two, putting in the work during the week to try and get better at doing it? And three, do they see improvement at the end of the week? And I think in all cases the answer was yes, yes, and yes.
Charles, this is a larger question as a whole just about this incoming draft class and less so specifically about the Senior Bowl, though I'm sure your Senior Bowl observations have influenced some of your opinions here. We all know, hey, Caleb Williams is going to go number 1 overall. Who knows if it's Chicago or someone trading or whatever happens, but you kind of have an expectation of where certain guys are going to land. Is there a guy where you think, I have no idea? He could go 5th, he could go, 15th, he can go 20th. I am so fascinated because I have no idea where he's going.
Oh, boy, that's a great question. Oh, that's a really good question. Look, coming out of the Senior Bowl, when we've talked about we're trying not to ding guys, but we're going to elevate guys, did we find someone now that moved into the first round that maybe we weren't quite sure? The name I'm going to give you is Darius Robinson, the defensive end from Missouri.
Okay.
Because coming into it, we saw the body of work. He stayed the extra year in terms of getting better. He ended up getting 14 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, and we all know statistics are whatever we want to make of them. But what I saw during the week was a guy that came in knowing he was a good player and left convinced he was a good player. And what I mean by that is, and both of you have probably done it in your lives, when you've taken on a certain challenge, you've walked in saying, I'm confident I can do this. And then after X number of days or a few experiences with it, I know I can. Not only can I do it, I can dominate it. That's what Darius Robinson did. But I watched him day 1 through day 4, and here was the difference. He would line up and go in day 1, and by day 4, he was standing in front of the line, daring them to put the best offensive lineman on the other side. He wasn't calling them out. He wasn't being, but he was standing up like, yeah, put your best out here. And he would work at defensive end. He'd be at the wide 9 technique. He'd work off of the edge. He'd come inside and work off of the 4-eye. He did everything, worked up and down. He worked over guards. He worked over the center. He worked over the tackles. He moved and went, and each time he wanted to be the first in line by the end of the week, and he wanted their best offensive tackle to be out there, best offensive guard. That showed me a lot about this one. And so, Stacy, to your point, we don't know where he's going to go. I'm not quite sure where everyone had him before, but I don't think he was a consensus first-round guy. He's getting first-round mention now. So this is going to be one to be interesting to see where he ends up going.
Love hearing somebody make some money at the Senior Bowl, man. That's what that's all about. Me being a receiver, I gotta ask a receiver question. My guy McConkey, I'm watching his route running, his one-on-ones. He seems like a guy. You look at his numbers; they're not going to impress you, but you see him on the football field. You see what he can do. What type of week did he have, and were there any other receivers that stood out to you?
Well, Michael, you know receivers better than anyone. When you watched him, all the things you saw, let me tell you what I saw, and you tell me if I'm in the right camp, okay? I saw a very smart receiver. I saw a very sharp, decisive receiver. I saw a receiver who understands how angles work. He understands leverage of defensive backs and how to break them down at their worst possible point, put them in conflict and in the wrong places. I saw a kid who catches everything that's thrown at him. He knows where the holes are. I think his spatial awareness and field awareness is exceptional. In other words, you know as a receiver, the one thing you don't want to do is disrupt other routes by you doing your thing. You know, sometimes you can freelance, but if you freelance and all of a sudden you're in the same spot with someone else, you've messed up everything. He doesn't do that at all. And he has that little bit, and you know, we were down in Mobile, Alabama, and it was Mardi Gras time. So there's a term down there in that area that they call lanyap, which means just a little extra on top. And that's what that kid has, right? He's got that little lanyap that you throw on the top of a route, and he goes. The interesting part for all of us was I felt like he was open almost every time he ran a route, but rarely did he see the football. So I'm not sure what was going on or why he wasn't. But to your point, don't get fooled by the numbers. Don't get fooled by what you saw in terms of people throwing it this week. This is one of the better receivers in the draft. The toughest part for him is going to be the medical because he's had a few injuries along the way. They want to know about his knee, want to know about this and everything else. But for the week, I thought he was absolutely tremendous.
Hey, Charles, last one for us, and I'm going to step away from the Senior Bowl for this one and just ask about your general reaction to Mike McDonald as new head coach of the Seahawks.
Excited for him, excited for Seattle people. I remember one of the statements John Schneider made that he said came from him and ownership was what Pete had put in place in terms of how they operate, you know, the positivity of that building, all those things. They wanted that to continue. Did that mean drafting a Pete clone? No. But they wanted a coach that was going to be more in that area than maybe the big bad Darth Vader coaches that could have been hired that could come in and do it. All right? And that's what I think you're getting with Mike McDonald. This is a guy, I mean, you guys are probably already there. His background and how he got there is exceptional. And to me, it's part of what I call the old American dream of how we get places. You work hard, you start at a low level, you do all the right things, you get noticed for your work, not because you've gone on a Skywriters tour and written it in the sky that I'm great. And he just keeps advancing and keeps doing well, and had the respect of the people that he was coaching. Like that Baltimore defense, those are some big bad guys now, as you guys well know. Mm-hmm. All right, they come through the door. You best be ready to go. And he had that from them, and I think it's going to be fun to watch that continue. He's kind of in that era. We've seen the hirings, right? You saw who got hired. He's in that same grouping of guys with that positive coaching, enthusiastic way. But doing the rah-rah is one thing. Rah-rah converting into good defense, into good play, into good teams, that's what people are looking for. I think Mike McDonald has a very good chance of doing that. I've always enjoyed my interactions with him. And I've always come away a little smarter having talked to him before a ball game.
Oh, love hearing that. He is NFL Network's Charles Davis, kind enough to join us on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline. Charles, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it very much.